Welcome to our podcast today. Today we're going to talk about feminine power and wealth. And I am May Lee, and I'd like to acknowledge my wonderful co-hosts, Danielle Dittberner and Dr. Katona Linn. We're so excited to be here with you today, where we speak about bold truth with sacred love. Today's podcast is about feminine power and wealth. And I'd like to bring up some topics that we don't always think about or talk about. And one of them might be, what does feminine power mean when it comes to wealth? And is it important for us to think about power and money as women today? And I'd just like to start with a short quote that might be of interest to you. It says, "I think every woman should have a financial independence, but not just for the money, for the security and the power that comes with it." So I'd like to start by seeing what does that make you feel when I read a quote like that? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Thoughts like, does feminine and power actually, are those two separate words, or can they be combined in one phrase? So many things that are changing in this world today, and I think that's what we'd like to get a pulse on. So and a lot of this will go back to our background, right? And our childhood and our influences growing up. So if you'd like to bring that up, maybe we can start with Danielle. Do you have a personal money story that shaped your beliefs about wealth?
I don't know if I have a specific story. I think it's just a collection, right, of experiences. And I think a big part of first I want to say, yes, feminine power does belong together. Absolutely 100%. And I think part of that is that there are unique gifts and talents that we have as women, and that's what gives us our power. Um, and that ability to really be in touch with multiple different things at once, being intuitive, being in touch with our emotions, and understanding how our emotions impact our thoughts as well as our actions, and being able to navigate sometimes, especially with our hormones, a lot that's going on at once, and still showing up in our kindness, in our agency, that gives us power. And oftentimes, I don't know that that's rewarded as much as it could be in the workplace, of really how much balance and harmony we do bring to circumstances. And I think that's really what makes us powerful. So, as far as how that's kind of or how I've experienced that in the world and my relationship with wealth, is that I saw in all of my previous roles how much the space was dominated by men, and that feminine power wasn't valued and it wasn't acknowledged until there was chaos. And in those moments, in my roles specifically, where I was able to step in and I was able to bring that feminine power, that then shifted and brought calmness to that chaos, and brought a sense of certainty, and um, just really being able to alchemize those experiences to something that came out successful on the other end.
Do
That
you
would
have a
be,
specific
yeah.
example on what the chaos was about, or
Yeah,
can you give us a little more?
yeah. So whenever I was a social worker, absolutely, just being able to come in and have conversations with my patients at the time and being able to bring them or de-escalate them from their stressed out, anxiety, depressive states to something that was more balanced gate and brought them back to agency. That's one way. Um, in the banking world, when there was moments where there was challenges with getting deals, um, as far as like getting deals to be finalized or work without any kind of hiccups, there was always hiccups. There's going to be. And so it was through that process of being able to nurture the relationship with my clients and be able to bring them a sense of certainty or de-escalating a lot of their worries or fears about if the deals were going to go through or if they were going to be able to have the funding for their businesses and being able to work with them to say, okay, we're going to make, we're going to figure out a way to make this happen even if this first loan isn't going to work out, we're going to find other avenues and just understanding what their needs are for their business and really being able to say there are so many different ways that we can go about this that just by having my own knowledge and informing them of that, that was helpful. With program management, oh my gosh, there would be times that with events, things come out of left field and we would have technology issues, there would be catering issues, there would be who knows what would happen. And somehow just being able to come in and be able to see that we just need to be present in the moment and we just need to be focusing on what did we come here for in the first place and bringing that back into focus always enabled us to then pivot and come out successful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I love that the pause is essentially, again, putting that time there so that people can reflect because it's when people are anxious and they're just kind of pushing, 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 then that makes, as you said, more chaotic, so less certainty. And that um, obviously that makes the situation less likely to be successful. And so I love how you brought that in that it's not just about the financial. It's about, it's kind of that the adaptive leadership
Mhm.
versus the technical leadership. What, how much money do you have? All those things. And what you're talking about is you're pulling in your adaptive leadership skills to kind of help ground the situation so it's not so stressful and people can make decisions. So one of my favorite models is Dr. David Rock talks about how our brains are wired for SCARF. So SCARF is status, certainty, which I heard you mention several times, autonomy, relationship, and fairness. And
Mhm.
all of those things, when I think about women in power, all of those things, and historically, you know, women have been limited with financial, like we couldn't even have a bank account, we couldn't inherit. So that historical, and I also think about like people who were slaves, like there's a piece missing of inheritance. And not just inheritance, it's that feeling of that you have autonomy, again, certainty, all of those things like that those things accumulate. And so even though women are making strides, there are literally centuries and centuries of that's been a challenge. And though the beauty is that when we recognize how our adaptive leadership skills can be used, like you're talking about, Danielle, like
Yeah.
that can have a huge impact. That if we just focus on the technical aspects of leadership, that we're not going to be as successful. So that's so powerful how you talked about that. And just kind of one other thing And I've shared in other episodes about how, money was kind of used as a weapon in our family, as I was growing up. And, again, just in general in life, it's often money can be used as a weapon to control people. And in jobs, I know I've had people who were doing the same situation and same job, and they were men and were getting paid more, yet I actually had more qualifications. So it's kind of interesting, when you see that. And it's frustrating because we do not always speak up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves. We think we need to be quiet. So again, there are a lot of things, if we understand why our brains are reacting the way they are, then it makes it easier to, I think, use those tools, like, really being present, and that it's okay to use those. And that not just okay, it's best practice that we should be doing that, because that's what we're going to see having a bigger impact positively. Like Google is a company that really is focused on doing that and creating environments where everyone is feeling more empowered. And so it's not just about that the skills that we have can make a situation easier, it's that we can actually see a stronger return on investment. And so if we can understand as women, what are the things that we can do, our strengths that can actually improve entire situations and the return on investment. And I think it's easier for us to communicate that. It's if we don't know what our skills are and how they can help them, if we're just looking at, well, the negatives, then we're not going to be able to truly bring our skills to the benefit of the entire organization to truly have a positive return on investment. One of my favorite quotes, well, it's not specifically a quote, but I read a book recently. It's Get the Hell Out of Debt by Erin Sky Kelly. And she talks about how debt was actually created for a way to control women, and that there were many situations where women were able to get credit, and that debt actually, though, is a way to kind of hold us down, because if we have a lot of debt, we can't have power, And so she really does a phenomenal job in that book talking about how, having debt alone is taking away a lot of our power. And so, and that we're often doing things for others, which is often what creates our debt, which then again, we're not really able to help others. Whereas, so if we help ourselves by getting out of debt, then we're actually going to be able to better help others. So it's that shift, kind of what you both shared so far. And I think it's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you just shared that piece about debt like taking away our power, and just thinking of that in an energetic way. If we are always giving our time and energy to others, we are enhancing our debt because we're not pouring into ourselves
Yeah,
as much.
absolutely.
And that's really what debt is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Overextending.
yeah.
Absolutely. It goes back to our age-old roles in society, right? As the givers. And it's precisely because we're the ones that provide the love and nurturing and the family, and we do that for free. We don't have any monetary compensation. So that carries over into our careers and our businesses, the giving nature. And now the paradigm is shifting, right? Because we need to run a business. We need to have careers, and we need to see ourselves as serious um, potential money managers and owners of wealth. So that brings us to the next question, is like right now if you look at the statistics, there's about 22 million millionaires in the United States. And of those, 1/3 are women. So we're not there, we're not at the 50-50 mark. And some of the reasons are what we've already described so far. The other thing is the gap in salaries, right? The gender gap.
Yeah.
So women are now at around 83% of what men make, given the same job and same skill set. So what do you think are some of the reasons for that, and what can we do to close that gap? Danielle, do you want to start?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a big part of that is women are starting to use their voice more. They are stepping up to the plate a little bit more about not just what their worth is, because we're all incredibly full of worth, right? I think it's more that we're articulating what we're doing more. We're able to see our value and how we bring so much more to the plate or to the table with organizations. I think it's also that there's a lot of men who are our allies, who are saying, you know what, we need to be honoring women in a way that allows them to earn more. I've had a lot of friends that I've heard their own shares of how they've stood up for women, and have fought for them in some ways to honor and acknowledge them. So I think that it's it's both sides of the table, that women are speaking up more and men are also honoring us a lot more as well.
Progress is being made,
Mm-hmm.
but it starts with us, right? And then it starts with us individually and then as collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Ann, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just I think again, I've talked about how our history and that a lot of the historical aspects of women not getting paid or worth is a trauma, which again can really impact us, like I said, over generations if we don't address it. And so it is so important. And that's what, again, I love the beauty of the three of us getting together, because we're always, having these conversations and digging deep and encouraging each other to think outside of the box and not just be stuck on that scarcity mindset of, oh, I just don't have this, and I'm not going to ever have this, whereas if we're really looking at our gifts, it's we have so much more. It's not just about tangibles. We talk about money like it's the end all be all, yet there are so many aspects of leadership that are not tangible. And this is where women, we need to know all of those things about ourselves. What are our values? What are our strengths? And be able to communicate that so that when people are kind of holding that financial power over us, that we recognize and can advocate for ourselves, that these are the things that I bring to the table. And again, what's the return on investment? And so, which is, it's not great to always have to think about that, but I think that's something that, we just need to get better at, and we need to collectively do things. And that, our Danielle, you mentioned it, the creativity and nurturing and the connection that we can bring to the table can have things happen, go much further and much more quickly. And one of the things that I think too is that we're not just checking off check boxes, we're actually looking at more sustainable change
Yeah.
when we're using our skills. If it's just a checklist, things aren't going to improve in a company, in a family, whatever it is. Though, if we are looking at how can we make this happen over the long term? How can we empower others? These are things that women have that can save so much in the long term because we're able to sustain improvements over
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
so it's we again, it's shift. I feel like we as women have to be clear on that in the first place so that we can then communicate. Because if we can't, we can kind of be stuck in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's focusing on the long term rather than the short term gains,
yeah.
and also bringing into um, like being able to zoom out in a way and be able to notice and bring all of the details that we're able to accumulate and go, what's the best path forward from a long-term scale
Mhm.
instead of what serves us just in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that scaling up that is huge.
Mhm.
It's when we get on the balcony and kind of see the big picture. And I think that is I know that's definitely something that I'm much more comfortable with is I'm good at the big picture and kind of seeing everything. And so, if we can all put our gifts together, I think
Yeah,
that's powerful.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a male-dominated world too, especially at the C level running corporations. And so as women working our way up, we need to be careful. We're not just adopting male power moves,
Yeah.
but we're integrating what we have as sensitivity and nurturing and valuing people for people, and their emotions are real. They need to be
yeah,
validated. They're real human beings. We're not
yeah,
just another, slot in the
yeah.
Yeah.
pegging
And they're
us.
not just soft skills. Like
Oh,
that's a
definitely.
word
I don't
that
like
just
soft skills.
no, like that being able to tune into our emotions and use that information and pivot and understand how to bring more of that presence and gentleness in
Exactly.
moments of chaos. That
Exactly.
is not a soft skill.
No.
It, I
No,
just
they're
think
more
that,
career ready skills. They're
yeah,
career strengthening skills. They really
Exactly.
are. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you,
I
Danielle.
think that during COVID, okay, some of the countries that responded the best had women presidents and leaders in place.
Yeah.
They handled the same situation, same crisis, but with something was different about having their feminine
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
parts of their leadership. And
Yeah.
like you said, gentleness and softness is looked at as weakness, but it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's essential,
And
Mhm.
a lot of
right?
men don't even really want to have that. Like I think in many ways it pulls down men because again they feel like they can't be those things because there's that stigma
Yeah.
and you know many men like there's we unfortunately have shootings and school shootings and suicides. Men are more likely to do all of those things at much higher rates, so they're not in a great place themselves. And
No.
so I think that again, the more we can like not shrink back when we see things and say, hey, let's create environments where everybody, which kind of is leading us into that psychological safety conversation.
Mhm.
It's
That's
Exactly.
going to be such a good episode. I can't
I
wait.
know.
Psychological, emotional safety.
Yeah.
When is vulnerability a strength?
Uh,
When is it important
Always.
in
Really,
leadership,
I was going to
right?
say always, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And why do we try to shun it? Why do we stay away from it? And men are so used to compartmentalizing and keeping everything
Mhm.
inside, internalizing, and then they have anger emotions that just blow up.
Yeah.
It needs to be dealt with. So,
Yep.
um,
100%.
Well,
and then
women too. Women too.
women,
And women
well,
too. Yeah.
on the flip
Women too.
side, women need to stop thinking we don't deserve that. We're not welcome in the boardroom. There's no
Mhm.
women in the C-suite.
Mhm.
I don't need to become a millionaire, billionaire, but majority of women are at that level have inherited their money.
Mm.
So although I think as women, we know that we recognize it's important to have the wealth, the way we go about getting it is still nebulous to us. It's like we're
Mhm.
questioning, how do we Instead of
Mhm.
just inheriting it, how do we create that for ourselves?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So maybe we're just going to wrap up pretty quickly here, but I'd like to throw out the question, what does wealth really mean, beyond money in the bank account? Is it only about the dollars, Is it about the
Mhm.
profit and loss statements,
Mm.
What does true wealth mean to you?
Mhm. Wealth is a state of mind.
Mhm.
Wealth is a state of mind. It is all about being able to center yourself in what truly matters to you as a person, your values, your moral compass. Where are you putting your energy? How are you utilizing your time? What's your intentions in living this beautiful life?
Mhm.
And when we're in alignment with all of those things and we're using our time and our energy efficiently, that's what creates so much wealth in our life because that's abundance. The emotions that we experience from being whole. Oh, you don't need to have so much in your bank account. And when you're living a lifestyle in that way, that's when your bank account grows.
Mhm. Yeah. We need to get out of our own way.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
don't need it. That's a pivotal word there.
Yep.
But why should you have any? Why don't you just live very, very comfortably at a very small, with a very small budget?
Mhm.
And that's the question I raise because
Mhm.
people often see wealthy people as either greedy or they term the word filthy rich. There's something negative about it. And that's what women buy into. Money is the root of all evil.
Mhm.
I'm like, what? When are you
Mhm.
going to challenge that belief?
Yeah.
Because what can you do as an individual if you want to give back to the community, right? You can serve in a soup kitchen, right? Or you can volunteer at the school and teach someone to read. That's beautiful,
Mhm.
very, very honorable. But what if you have $65 billion?
Mhm.
Then
How
what are you
much
going
could
to
you
do?
do? Yeah.
What can
Yeah.
you do? So beyond thinking about our own selves and our own family, can we think a little bit bigger?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because if you had the money, you would give the same way, only to causes that you believe in. You're not going to be able to spend it all on yourself.
Mhm.
You might, but get a closet full of shoes and designer bags. But beyond that, you might start thinking, what else can I
That's just
do?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay,
love it.
so I'd like to invite all of our listeners today just to think a little bit more about what does feminine power mean to you, and how are you going to rewrite your script and your story about wealth and being female at the same time? And is anything going to change as a result of those definitions? And how can you step more into your feminine power, assume that power, and don't apologize for it? Women are often labeled, when someone is labeled ambitious, the women get the bad rap and the men are looked at, with respect. So there's a lot of these things that need to shift in our society today. And I
Mhm.
invite all of our listeners to think about that. And so I think that pretty much wraps us up for today. I'd like to thank both of my wonderful co-hosts, Danielle Dittberner and Dr. Katona Linn. We're three voices, one mission, healing, leading, and living fully without apology. And please stay tuned for our next session next week on the Lifepreneur.
Mhm.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.